Let me know whenever you're ready. I know you just got in, so I don't want to rush you.
Hello, everyone. I am the Comics Kid 2099, and I am joined by Connor Nielsen. Connor, how are you doing today?
Shagadelic, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Although I should probably say it more like Shagadelic, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yeah,
How are you
that's
doing?
a not a bad I guess Nevada in accent, Arkansanian. I'm doing well. Today, if you didn't catch, you might be confused about what we're doing. We The last time we spoke about Austin Powers, that ergo Connor's Austin Powers voice, and this time today we are talking about a movie. We usually talk about Twin Peaks stuff, or we talked about all of Twin Peaks. So now we're talking about movies and TV shows that have Twin Peaks actors in them, or people who are involved with Twin Peaks. So today I chose Tremors, the 1990 film. And Connor, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tremors?
Tremors is a story about a couple of handymen played by Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. It is they live in Perfection, Nevada. Is it Nevada?
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
okay, so somewhere in the desert, and it has a population of a whole 14 people. And then one day, a monster shows up and starts terrorizing the people, picking them off one by one. It's kind of like Jaws, except the shark is under the sand as opposed to under the water. And you might have been able to piece together that in Jaws they could, stay on an island. These monsters have a tendency of picking you up from just below the surface, pull you down from beneath the surface, and there's nothing you can do about it if you're unsuspecting. So it starts off as a little bit of a monster movie, and it continues to be a monster movie, but it becomes more of like a protect the fort kind of a thing as the residents of Perfection start to realize what's going on, and they band together to fight these creatures under uh, the surface. Comics Kid, you picked this. What did you think of Tremors?
I would like to equate this to when we talked about The Crow, and I said that movie was a perfect movie. Now, I haven't watched The Crow a lot, maybe two times, but it's one of those movies that even though it's not necessarily my go-to whenever I'm in the mood to watch something, I can't fault the movie. I think structurally that movie was just perfect. Like, just about everything about it worked. And I feel like that's the same thing I can say about Tremors. I think I've only seen it three times, and recently, like in the last few years. But it's one of those movies I think like the setup and payoff is just really good. I think most of the casting is pretty good. And maybe there are a few things I could quibble about, but really I would just be nitpicking at that point. But I think as far as like if you're out there and you're like, I've got this idea for a story I want to do, like, I feel like this is a good place that you could look for, like, tips on like your, honing your practice in screenwriting. Like, it's got a lot of really excellent, like, just in terms of the structure of everything, I think it works really well. So that I like the movie quite a bit. Connor, you had never seen it before, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I was curious if you had seen it before, so it sounds like you have.
Yes, I had seen it a few times before choosing it.
Okay. Yeah,
Did you?
this was my first time.
Okay, and did you like it?
I thought this movie was awesome.
Great, awesome, yeah.
I want to equate this actually to another movie that we've watched, The People Under the Stairs.
Oh, okay. And I know you love
So
that movie.
yeah, if anyone has been a long time listener and heard us talk about The People Under the Stairs, you may remember I watched that and was like really impressed by it. The first time I watched it, I think I gave it like a 7 out of a 10, 7.5, something like that. Um, for those not in the know, that's actually one of my like 25 favorite movies. Like I love it to pieces, and I've seen it probably 7 or 8 times at this point. um, so watching this movie, I'd give it a big old thumbs up, probably a 7, 7.5 out of 10, because I know that's going to be going up because I'm definitely going to be watching this over time.
Hmm.
The reason why I would equate it to that is that it is so entertaining, and it's one of those things where I feel like if you were to poll like 10,000 people about why they go to the movies, 99% of them will say, oh, I just want to be entertained. And you know maybe I have a different definition of entertainment than most other people. But to me, movies like I don't know, like the Mission Impossible movies are entertaining to me, or um, like when it comes to something like Pixar, like the best Pixar movies, they have an entertainment value to them, but what I'm getting out of them is more like emotional, and it's a variety of things
Mhm.
before it's entertainment. But that being said, I do value entertainment, and I think most movies do try to simply be entertaining. Um, and I think making something that is like truly entertaining, like through and through, is as hard to make as something that is, trying to be very artistically expressive or emotional or whatever. Which is to say, it's really difficult. I think surprisingly few movies actually kind of get on that level of, wow, this is such a watchable movie because of the entertainment value. But I think this makes it there. I think People Under the Stairs has that, although that has like a social commentary angle that it can lean into. But I think like the original Star Wars is this way because that is, in my opinion, probably the most purely entertaining movie that's ever been made. Um, but yeah, this is absolutely right on there. I've heard about Tremors for a long time. My just pure intuition, like perspective on it, was that it was probably just like a B movie, like just something that people liked because they maybe rented it on a whim from a video store. But as I've gotten older, I have heard people talk about it as like kind of a standout. Like they'll bring up the structure, or they'll talk about how fun it is. Like my stepmom really likes it. Our colleague Rasco loves it. I think I remember you mentioning it once or twice. I know Mike Stacklasa of Red Letter Media regularly cites it as just a great, example of a structure, like a perfectly structured screenplay. And yeah, it is all of those things. I thought it was really, really friggin' good. And I can't wait to talk more about it.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of something you said. I feel like for the most part there is no wrong reason to like a movie. Now, if I said to somebody, "What's your favorite movie?" and they said like one of the Michael Bay Transformers movies, and I said, and I wasn't, I didn't immediately like gag, and then like I said, "Well, okay, what is it you like about those movies?" and they're like, "Oh, well, I really like the action." I would probably just be like, "Oh, okay." And then I would just, move on, and I'd be like, you know what? I don't believe that you are an actual human being. I think you're probably like an alien but you know what? If you like that movie and that's your reason for liking it, you know what? You go. But like you were talking about like entertainment being like the driving, and like, for me, I love to just sit back and enjoy myself, but also like I've something of a reputation of like doing videos where I say this movie didn't work for me and here's what I would have done differently. And so like I am entertained. Like sometimes, you can just have a nice fun like redneck Dune, basically. I've jokingly called this movie before like Dune, without the jihad or whatever. But
I'm
and
so glad you brought that up because I had that on my brain like half the
excellent,
time.
yeah. But like, it's a fun movie, but also like I am entertained by like how well told it is. And
Mhm.
I recently rewatched the movie Reign of Fire with Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale, and I was reading up on it, and apparently a lot of the people involved were all like, "Yeah, this is basically a B movie," and I was like, and I don't know if you've seen that, but I was like, I don't really think I agree with that. Like, it may not have done like great numbers, but like to me, if the acting is solid, it may be like back in the 50s, like you'd have like there's this movie, I don't remember what it was called, but like there were these monsters and it was basically just dogs with like a fur coat like draped over them, like it was looked awful. And back then that was a sign of a B movie, but nowadays like even I would say like Dragon Wars D Wars, that's a B movie, right? But like this, I feel like this is, it might not be everyone's cup of tea. If you're not into monster movies, you might not enjoy it. But for me, I think this is something my mom always says, like for what it is, it's good. Like I think if you like monster movies, this is cream of the crop, in my opinion.
Yeah. Um, oh shoot, I had to. Oh yeah. So speaking of like the B movie kind of thing, it's weird because like I'm watching this movie and I'm trying to figure the way to kind of express the way it works, and like because right away like it was one of those movies that like maybe I've mentioned this a few times. When I watch a movie, I will usually just start it and then I'll just basically be watching scenes, let it wash over me, and then usually at some point in the middle of the movie, I'll realize if it's working for me or not. It's never like at precisely halfway through the movie I assess whether I am having a net positive or a net negative experience. It's never like that. It's like sometimes I won't know how well I'm liking a movie till like the end of the second act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This was a movie where, like, almost from like the first scene, I was like consciously enjoying the movie. A lot of that came down to the tone, and I was trying to figure out the tone, and I would probably describe this as a B movie with an A movie budget and like A movie storytelling and A movie acting, because it feels like everyone knows what the assignment is, and I say B movie because this feels inspired by B movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not a B movie like product, but it feels like it is a send up of B movies, like it's celebrating that kind of way of doing things, like because the if you were to just read the dialogue as written, like just completely like blankly, it would probably sound really on the nose and hokey. But when you have Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon delivering that banter, they make it really entertaining. I could just like listen to I would watch a TV show about these two characters,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't even need like a subterranean monster. You know what I'm saying? And like, but even then, like the direction in this movie is very good, but it's not like a Martin Scorsese or like a David Lynch movie where like they're kind of the star of the movie, even though Leonardo DiCaprio is the one on the camera, in front of the camera. It's more of like a thing where like it's really well made, but I just get the feeling that the director just really liked the idea and was just serving the storytelling at every turn. Like I've never heard of Ron Underwood. I've probably seen a couple of his movies on accident, but like I was just really impressed by the way he shot it. Not that it's like a particularly like incredibly shot movie, but like the editing and like the way he's directing the actors and the banter they have, and just kind of the actual script in terms of how small like the community is. Like there's like a lot of like attention to detail in the characterization and the location and like the little setups and payouts like you were talking about earlier. It all feels so credible, and like I think that is like the secret sauce to making something like this work.
Yeah, that's very well told, and I agree with you that like it, while it itself is not a B movie, but I can definitely see how this is probably inspired by the B movies from the 50s of like, if we can like, definitely like some Roger Corman in the DNA maybe. And I mean, it's made a little bit more professionally than that, but like I can see that would have been an inspiration.
Yeah, like the acting in particular, there seems to be a sort of heightened quality to it where their accents are very, silly Southern accents. They don't sound authentic to real Southern accents, I don't think. I've not spent a lot of time in the South. It is sort of like a caricature of like, hick redneck accents, but it never feels like the movie's making fun of it, these characters and their world. It does feel like an exaggerated detail to kind of signal that what kind of movie you're watching, what kind of headspace to be in. Like, I don't know, just like little details like that.
Yeah, I think the accents are pretty okay. A lot of times that can be a real bee in my bonnet if I'm watching something like Anna Paquin in the X-Men movies. I thought her Southern accent was not great. A lot of times it feels like somebody is trying to do an accent that they've never actually heard the real version of that accent. Like I would bet everything I own that Anna Paquin has never been to Mississippi and doesn't know how people south of the Mason-Dixon actually talk. She's just heard like a lot of exaggerations of that, and that was what she was doing. But I can't
She comes
think
from
of
south of a different line, okay? She comes from south of the equator, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah. But I feel like in this movie I can't think of anyone right off the top of my head who is doing an overly exaggerated version of that. Maybe some of like the people who are not Fred Ward or Kevin Bacon. Maybe some of them were, but right off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone where I would just instantly point them out and say, you need to do better. I feel like it's definitely, I feel like it's supposed to be a little cartoonish, but like you said, I think everyone understood the assignment and nobody is phoning it in.
Right. By the way, I think everyone knows who Kevin Bacon is. Um, he is like, I knew this is a Kevin Bacon movie. Like he's the main guy. He's not. He's a co-lead.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Ward was like the thing about this movie that really surprised me. That is one charming guy. Like I really liked him in this movie.
Yeah, I like their dynamic. Like you said, it would be fun to just see their adventures when they're not almost killed by giant worms. Like, what are these two like? And you get some fun little moments early on, like where he's faking like it's a stampede, look out, and you get to see like. And I've seen people who will poo-poo the show don't tell. They say who cares. I like that this is showing us. Okay, I see what their dynamic is. Like when Kevin Bacon sees, oh wait, there's a woman over there. She has to, and he like lists off his qualifications for what he's looking for in a woman. And Kevin Ward is kind of rolling his eyes, like, okay, you have got to let that go. And like I genuinely believe that these two have been buddies for years and have worked together, and they know each other inside and out. You see movies sometimes where someone will say like, well, this is telling me that they're friends or lovers or whatever, but the chemistry is just not great. But this, I'm totally buying it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just one of those things where I was curious about their history. Like I don't necessarily need to see a prequel or need to know the history, but it does feel like these are lived-in characters. Fred Ward is transparently older than Kevin Bacon is, and they even like I think Kevin Bacon even like maybe gives him a few jokes about at your age here and there. But I'm curious, what drew these guys together? Like, what's Fred Ward's backstory, where he's still like a handyman at his, I don't know, mid-30s, maybe early 40s, and like like Kevin, I love the little thing where they play rock paper scissors to do stuff. I like the, how they have a difference in philosophy, where Fred Ward is all about like you need to have a plan. And Kevin Bacon is more fly by the seat of his pants, and I like how as you watch the movie that like they kind of equal each other out, where they can plan, but the plan maybe goes sideways, and then Kevin Bacon has to come up with like a last minute solution. But then sometimes the plan does come together. Like it's a cool dynamic that just sounds very simple on paper, but like you said, like you're entertained by the telling of it, and I think that they couldn't have got two better actors with this chemistry. Like they are just like a great combo.
Yeah. And what you're saying, it's like in theory, I've never taken a screenwriting course, but this should be screenwriting 101, right? Like if you're writing a story, you've got your major conflict, which is like the monster, but then you can also have like a smaller conflict where Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon don't necessarily agree on how they need to do this. And then like, that will also provide a little bit of tension when they're not immediately in danger from the monster. And you look at like The Odd Couple. I've never watched The Odd Couple, but there's conflict in the two differences in personalities. You've got one who's a neat freak and one who's a slob, and that's going to create conflict. And so this is similar in that, like you said, they have different methodologies about how they want to go about doing this, and that will provide more content, or not, content's not the right word, but that will provide more opportunities for conflict, which will drive the story forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like how I really like that thing you were talking about earlier, where Kevin Bacon has like this very stringent criteria for what he's looking for in a woman, and it's all physical. And then you have Fred Ward, who he's got, you see this right, like young men versus like older guys, where Fred Ward he kind of sort of sees the beauty in someone as they are, and he's not as picky as maybe he once was, or as Kevin Bacon is. Yeah, and honestly, the supporting cast was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Catherine Stewart?
Charlotte Stewart?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I got her confused with Catherine Coulson, who plays
Yeah, I did. Yeah. As I was choosing this the last time we spoke, as I was choosing it, I thought, wait a minute, I don't think she really does a whole lot in the movie. But at the same time, I was like, I really want to talk about Tremors. So, sorry, the Twin Peaks connection is very bare this time. But yeah, I do like a lot of our side characters, and a lot of them on paper don't have anything going on, but they bring enough that it's like, okay, like I kind of like the dynamic that the whole town has. Like, you've got the guy who runs the store, and he's kind of trying to gouge the price when he buys the graboid from them, and then like you can kind of see like, okay, that's his only thing, but it works, and he's making it work.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about, how it's maybe a little cartoony, like when you look at like the accents, for example, maybe is a little exaggerated. That's what I kind of like also about the the cast, where you think, oh, it's a small southern town where everybody knows everybody. I think the sign says the population is 14. Like, literally everybody does know everybody. Like,
Yeah.
because it's so small and insular. But what I thought was really funny was, like, I don't know if you had this thought while you were watching it, but I just thought about like the economy of a town this tiny. I'm thinking like if you gave is it Mr. Chen like $5?
Yeah.
Like if you gave him $5, would you see that same $5 bill in like 2 days? Because of this like, I'm just thinking about that, and I'm like, so what's everyone's occupation? You got a town doctor, and you got like the handyman, and then you have like the store. I'm sure the guy who at the store gets stuff delivered so that people can buy it. But I'm thinking, like, how much, like, what kind of jobs are these people working where they can afford handymen to just kind of do stuff around, where they can afford to like live in like a little trailer, where they can afford to go up to the, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, now this is obviously not like important details. I'm not CinemaSins dinging this or anything, but I don't know. Like, I did like how it's like you take the idea of the small town and they made it as small as possible. And like, honestly, there are like maybe some scenes where you're looking at the entire population of this town banding together.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe, of course, I haven't done a whole lot of research on like the making of the movie, but I feel like a lot of the like choosing the like how big the town is was down to, we need to have some casualties, but we also like, so it needs to be just big enough where we can kill off a few of them and you can feel like there's real danger. And then, but it needs to be small enough that people will care what happens to them. And if it was a town of, 400, it would be a lot harder to care about all of your characters, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was more thinking about like, oh, these guys are like, they have packed up their stuff, they're about to leave, and that's when things start happening. And I'm thinking, this town's gonna fall apart. Like, I don't know what anyone else's job is except for the general store guy. And so I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen when Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward leave? And are they gonna, like, once they move to a bigger city, are they gonna be able to find work, or are they just gonna be like, small fish in a big pond, or whatever the phrase is? I will say there's one guy in here. The actor's name is, oh, sorry, there we go. Richard Marcus. He played the guy who at one point he's sitting in the tire and they're all on the roofs and they're like, hey, no, that's not going to work. And then he gets sucked in. I think other than like the guys working on the road, no, I was going to say he's one of the only ones who dies, but I think the Mr. Chang, doesn't he die also?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But
it's
he
a
was
spectacular death.
Oh yeah. But Richard Marcus, he was in a TV show of the 90s, The Pretender. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of it, but it was a favorite of mine growing up, and I've gone back and watched it, and I don't know if it necessarily holds up. The early parts of the series are really good, but when I saw this, I was like, hey, it's Mr. Raines from The Pretender. And yeah, that was a treat seeing him a little bit, kind of a different character.
Yeah, I didn't recognize anybody in, well, okay, the people I recognized, one, obviously Charlotte Stewart, and also Charlotte Stewart's daughter, who I feel 90% confident in saying that's the girl from Jurassic Park.
Oh, is it? I'm gonna have
Jurassic
to.
Park is 3 years later, and
It is her. I did
yeah, I
not know
thought
that.
so. Thought so.
Okay. I did not. Of course, I've seen it 1.5 times maybe. So I did not realize that was the same girl. Wow. Okay.
And I watched Jurassic Park for the first time since I was in like elementary school, just a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
That
That's
movie's
another one.
awesome.
That's one. Laura Dern. There's a Twin Peaks
Yeah,
connection. Also, are you a country music fan? I feel like I shouldn't even like. You're probably not, right?
I've developed an appreciation for the country aesthetic this year. But
Okay.
I cannot say that I am a country music fan, although I do know who Reba McEntire is.
Okay, I was watching this with my parents, and they were talking about Reba McEntire, and I, I was like, because I've heard the name. I don't think I've heard any of her music, and I didn't know that was her. They had to tell me that that was her. But I think she's not bad. I was recently watching a video on YouTube where somebody said that a lot of times you'll give a pass for somebody who's not an actor, like John Cena or LeBron James, and you're like, yeah, they're pretty good. And I feel like she plays the prepper, the almost right wing extremist doomsday prepper. She plays that part pretty well. She and Michael Gross, I think, both do that pretty well.
Yeah, now I know that two of the characters from this movie appear in all of the Tremors movies. It's not
Um,
them, is it? Because I don't think Reba McEntire is showing up for Tremors 4.
no, no. I've only seen the first four Tremors movies. As far as I know, Michael Gross is in all of them. Um,
Got it.
Fred Ward is in the second one, and then hold on. I'm trying to think if he was in the third one. I don't think he was in the third one. And then the fourth one is actually a prequel set in the 1800s, but it's still Michael Gross is still in it. But I don't think I think it's just Michael Gross who is the
Oh,
continuing.
okay. Okay.
I think I could be wrong. I could be just completely misremembering somebody. There was one other actor that I recognized. The guy who played the annoying kid, the boy. Um,
I love
he
that character.
he was in one of the Mystery Science Theater movies from about, oh wow, I guess 5 years ago, when Netflix did their original. It was like a 6 or 7 episode season. It was there was two movies, Wizards of the Lost Kingdom 1 and 2. He was in one of those, and I actually saw that before I saw this. So when I first watched Tremors, I was like staring at the screen, like, where have I seen that guy before? And I think he does okay with the material he's given. I feel bad for him because I was looking him up, and like his most recent credits were from 2015. I don't know if you ever saw any of the Mythica movies. There was like I who you not maybe 7 or 8 of these direct to DVD or direct to TV movies that were just really low budget, not great fantasy movies. And he's in like 3 or 4 of those. But that was the last thing that he did, and I was like, I wish that he had more of a career. I enjoyed him in this, even though he's not sharing the spot, he's not in the spotlight a lot, but I like what he's doing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of the. This is like you were talking about earlier, just being entertained by the telling of the story. Like the movie just won me over so quickly that I was noticing details where I'm like, okay, this is obviously a setup for something that will be paid off later. But the predictability wasn't a problem. Honestly, for me, predictability is rarely a problem. And it's like, especially in something like this. But it was one of those things where when that kid is just being a little snot, and well, I mean, maybe that's exaggerated. He's just kind of a silly kid, He just
Hmm.
like maybe just causing inconveniences as opposed to like legitimately ruining people's days. But he's just kind of being an annoying kid, and I'm like, oh, he's going to be the boy who cried wolf, and then you get a little payoff for that about halfway through.
Hmm.
um, I like that part where like he's got the snake wrapped around him and he's like running out, and I don't know, like it's not like a great performance, but like I was saying earlier, just like as far as we need a kid to just sort of be a funny, annoying kid in a sort of B movie way. Like he sells it, and like I found myself laughing a lot during this movie. Like laughing honestly more than I do in most comedies, and I think it just kind of comes down to like the movie isn't a comedy, but like the comic relief is like really good.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, like you said, it's a monster movie. I was thinking like you've talked about how you're a really big fan of survival movies, like the Poseidon Adventure. I wouldn't quite go so far as to say it's a survival movie, but once Act Two kind of gets started, that's kind of what it is, right? Like it's a monster movie, but I feel like a monster movie, you are there, you want to see the monster. And this movie, you see the graboids a little bit, but you're there, in my opinion, you're there to see these people try to survive the threat of the monster. And so in that way, it kind of feels a little bit like a survival movie. And I think it's an interesting twist on the monster genre.
Yeah, I've heard this movie described as, and I described it earlier as sort of like a Jaws in the desert. But maybe that is kind of an incorrect way of describing it because I mean, in a certain way, from a certain point of view, because like you were saying, like survival movie, I think like it's sort of like a protect the fort or like a siege kind of movie where
Yeah.
like there's after a certain point there's more than one graboid, and they're all at one point they're all stuck inside the market, and they're being attacked. And then honestly probably my favorite part of the movie is the graboid is underneath, and then the college student, she says, okay everybody, just don't talk, don't make any noise, and then it goes quiet, and then you hear the little spring of the pogo stick outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Like that's what I think of when it's like okay, we're all like in the safe hold, now we need to make sure everyone can get to the safe hold. Okay, everyone's in the or stronghold. Now everyone's in the stronghold. And then great, now like what we thought was fortified is like breaking down. Now we got to find a way to like, keep everyone alive, but we're inevitably kind of splintering away because it's not just one graboid anymore. Now they're all converging on this one location. I don't know, they I was kind of talking about this with my stepdad actually just before talking to you. They just really got creative with the premise. They came up with like every single scenario you could think to do with a subterranean desert worm thing trying to get you. Like,
Yeah.
they really thought it all through.
Yeah, you were hitting on something I wanted to mention is that you would think it's like, okay, you walk on the ground and the worm can, we must walk without rhythm or we won't attract the worm. And then like you would think if you just hear that, you're like, oh, well, that's going to get old after like 10 minutes, but it doesn't. It just when you think, okay, they've fully exhausted everything they could do, and then they'll do something else. And I think it's really good at finding ways to make the premise last as long as it does.
Yeah. A quick directing thing I liked. There's a lot of crane shots here because throughout a lot of the first half, you do not see the graboids. They're underground, but we need to kind of be alerted to their presence, or at least have it in our mind that the threat is down there. And so there'll be a lot of shots where it'll like be just a pretty flat shot, looking straight at Kevin Bacon and or Fred Ward, and then as they'll be walking around, the camera will kind of move out a little bit. It'll become more of like a medium wide shot, and the camera will sort of go up and look at them from, look down on them, and you start to frame them as kind of small against how big the desert landscape is, and like it was cool. Like those were creative shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Like there's a lot of overhead shots, a lot of craning up. There's a lot of that, and I thought that was a good, smart detail.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to say about like directing and stuff like that. That usually that kind of thing most of the time kind of goes over my head. But yeah, I was never. The last thing you want is to bore your audience. And if you've got a limited location that you're working with here, so you want to keep it fresh. And so I feel like, speaking for myself, that it did a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking of this premise and how many ways this could have just gotten boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of stale after a little while. I don't know, like man, it was like one of those things where in the first act of the movie, there's like really cool stuff. Like there's the one like road construction person who puts a jackhammer through the graboid, and like the blood comes up from below the street, and then it injures this monster, so then it just runs away with the uh, jackhammer still lodged in it, and it's this cool like special effect, right? Where
Yeah, yeah.
you have the concrete splitting, but then like they kept coming up with fun ways. Like I really liked the sort of snake-like tongues of the graboids. Now I didn't know what the creatures in this movie looked like, and so it was a fun reveal. I liked how they reveal it to us. Like that scene with the older couple, where like the woman is in the car towards the end, and then later when Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon kill the one graboid on accident, and they unearth some of it, and you get a kind of a sense of the scale, but you don't get a real good look at what it's like. And then the head is popping out a few times. I don't know, like they did a good job at giving you little glimpses and looks. And even when they weren't showing it, I was still entertained by the monster. I really liked how, because you're working with the desert, and you have to show that there's a monster under there. I liked how you'd have like their wooden decks, like the individual beams of wood would like come up in like a wave. I like that.
Yeah. I won't say this is like a huge problem with the movie, but at one point they're all in the general store, or most of them are, and then they have again set up and payoff. The early in the movie, the deep freezer, it's making a loud racket, and you have to do something like kick it or something to kind of get it to stop, and then it starts doing that, and that when you make noise, that's what attracts the monster, and then it brings the graboid up through the floor and I was thinking, like, because if you're on a rock, like at one point, Fred Ward, Kevin Bacon, and a college girl, they are all in the desert, but they're standing on this gigantic rock, and they're safe because the graboids, if they hit rock, that will, like, especially if they're going really fast, that will kill them. And I was thinking, wait a minute, isn't the general store built on like a concrete base? And then I was like, that's okay, because structurally, it's like every so often you need something exciting and terrifying to happen, and so this was the right moment for that to happen. But and because you've got like the Reva McEntire and the other guy, their house, I think they are safe, although it does come through the walls, but I think they're on the floor, they were safe. So right there, that might be the only thing in the movie where I'm questioning the laws of what this movie establishes and what does and does not happen. But that's the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. At first, I was wondering, like, well, hold on, that one graboid died when it collided with, cement. How come that one was able to bust through the basement? But then I was thinking, well, what if the one that died was like a younger one and weaker and traveling faster? You know what I mean? So you can kind of headcanon it. They're different graboids. Different things will kill different ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be, because, and this is something, as the movies, as you get further in the series, it becomes more, they explain like the biology of the creatures, and each movie kind of introduces a new element it's not just, oh, it's the graboids again. I don't know if you're interested in watching the others, but it's like, okay, it's a graboid, but there's something else that wasn't in the previous movie. And what I like about this one is that it doesn't get too detailed about it. I've heard, like, Brandon Sanderson is a science fiction and fantasy author I've talked about before. He talks about soft magic and hard magic, and like a hard magic, everything is explained and you, the audience, know exactly how it all is supposed to work. And then a soft magic system, you don't really know what the magic, how it works. You just know it does work, but you're not in the know. And I feel like it's not magic, but this is kind of a soft magic system where it's like, we know that, that they give us what they need to give us, and we know, okay, if you're out in the ground, if you're moving around, you're going to attract them. You don't find out what brought these things here. I can't remember which one it is. Is it in this one where she says, like, it's maybe an alien or maybe just a really ancient animal?
See, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is they just speculate on it.
Yeah. And I don't need an origin. You might, if, like you mentioned CinemaSins earlier, you might say, oh, well, why are they coming out now? What brought them out? And you know what? In the past, I've asked questions about that on other movies. But for this one, like I said, it's not about the monster. It's about the people and their attempts to try and get away. And so I didn't need a reason why suddenly, after thousands of years, these things are coming out and attacking the town. I didn't need that explained to me.
Yeah, me neither. Like, as you were saying, like, in a survival or a disaster or like siege movie, it is more about just the visceral experience of the event, right? Like as far as the story goes, like that's all you need, I think. And what I liked so much about that scene was that felt like a tip of the hat to like B movies. They're all kind of speculating on what it could be, and Kevin Bacon says radiation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then she says, what if they're just like, and it's like, I love the line because it's like she realizes how ridiculous it is as she's saying it. She's like, what if it's just this ancient like creature that's billions of years old and we just didn't know about it just conveniently right now? And
Yeah.
then Fred Ward says, I think it's aliens. It's like, you go into a B movie where there's a monster and it's one of those three things. Always. It's always
Yeah.
radiation, an ancient creature that we're just seeing for the first time now, like the Meg, or it's an alien. And so I don't know. I thought that scene was very amusing.
Yeah. And you mentioned Kevin Bacon just a second ago, and I was wanting to say this. So I was thinking, because this movie came out in 1990, I was thinking, oh man, this was probably very early in Kevin Bacon's career. It was probably kind of risky casting him. And I looked, and I knew that he was in the first Friday the 13th movie. I did not realize that that movie came out in 1980, and his actual first performance was in Animal House. I had no idea he was in that. I've only seen like one scene from that movie, but I had no.
You don't need to see Animal House.
Oh, okay. The scene I saw was
Sorry, old guys. It's not very good.
the only scene I've seen is the one where the horse dies. I thought that was kind of funny, but sorry if you're into horses, anyone. But yeah, he's been acting for over a decade by this point, and I don't know when he became like, oh yeah, it's Kevin Bacon. Like we know who that is. Like I guess Footloose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did Footloose come out?
84.
Okay.
So yeah, that he probably was like he was a name, but like he was still hungry enough that he was willing to do something like this and risk it. This was like he wasn't I can't think of a good example, but like he wasn't so popular and so well known that he was willing to just shoot something like this down, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what's kind of interesting about Kevin Bacon now that I'm thinking about him
Mm-hmm.
is me, you, and I think everybody just knows Kevin Bacon is like a famous actor. He's like a star or something. But he's never been like George Clooney, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of the last time I saw Kevin Bacon in like a movie that everyone went to see, or if he was in like an Oscar movie or something. He's not Harrison Ford, but yet everyone just kind of knows and generally likes Kevin Bacon. I don't know. It was just kind of something I was thinking about.
Yeah. I like. I mean, I think the most recent movie I saw with him was probably X-Men First Class, and that was like 11 years ago, so or 12. And I know he's done stuff like he did a horror movie a few years ago. I'm looking at. Oh yeah, he was in R.I.P.D. I had wiped that one from my mind. So yeah, he's
you neuralized that from your mind.
yeah. It's a Men in Black movie. That's what Connor said.
He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. He was really good in it. The only good thing Disney Plus has ever produced.
Yeah, he's done stuff like he's been in some TV shows. And I mean, a lot of this is stuff I have not heard of. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess he's keeping. Oh, he's in the Toxic Avenger remake that I found out about like 3 days ago.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, you were talking about like the creatures, and one thing that like and how like in terms of why they're here, it's all kind of like more associated with that soft magic. It's not really explained. I like that, but what I do like is how whoever came up with this did think about a creature more than I think they had to. Like they kind of like you have like a character looking at their biology and saying, oh, this is how they move underground, and with like these little things that propels them, and how like they don't have eyes because well they're subterranean, so they have to like I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like I wouldn't have even thought about those sorts of details, but they thought about that, and I like that. I did have one question though.
Yeah.
Do I make you horny? Randy, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, you do. No, I'm just. But yeah, what you're saying, it's like going back to the B movie thing. It's like nobody is going to call Tremors high art, but where a B movie, they're just kind of like, okay, let's get this over with. Let's shoot it as quickly as I can. And if we can make like a little bit of money, then we're good. But with this, it's like, no, let's sit down and think about it. And not everyone is going to think this is great, but the people who do are really going to love it. And I think that goes with what you were saying about like the design of the creature and how they work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I had anything else to say about the movie. Did you?
Yeah, well, I really liked the action. Like I thought it was really entertaining. I love the visual effects. I love all the practical stuff. Like I hate to be that guy, but it just kind of made me wish movies were like this today. We don't really get movies like this much anymore. If this movie was made today, it would probably be like a Netflix movie that nobody watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just like, I don't know. I like how tangible this movie is. The part where Reba McEntire and Michael Gross, is that his name, Michael Gross?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Where they just have a wall of guns and just blast that graboid to pieces. That was awesome.
And this is something I think I'm echoing what Mike Stoklasa said on Red Letter Media, but you don't get a repeat of how, like when a graboid dies in a certain way, you don't get a repeat of that. They don't just go to the armory and everybody in town grabs a machine gun and then they just blast all of them. Like they kill one graboid with their guns, and then all the others they have to get more creative and they have to, that's not going to work a second time, and that could have gotten really repetitive. But I'm glad they thought about it and they said, no, let's have different ways that they deal with the monster each time.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what made this such an entertaining watch. Is they really got creative in just terms of the monsters, and it makes you like the characters more. Just like seeing them get resourceful. I really like seeing that in characters.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more I have to say. Like I just thought it was a really stinking good movie. I'm glad you finally made me watch it.
Yeah, me too.
In a way, I always knew it would happen this way. I always knew either Rasco or Comics Kid would like make me watch this, and I'm glad you did.
I flew to the West Coast. I duct taped you to your chair, and then I said, not just Tremors, but Tremors 1 through 4. I'm just kidding. I actually
like, the Arrow video set just came out. We're gonna marathon them. You opened my eyes up like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
We watched all of them.
Like I said, I've only seen the first 4, but I was looking up to see how many are there, and there are, I think, 7 of these things. And by the time you get to 7, I poo you not, it was John Heder, is that how you say his name, from Napoleon Dynamite? And him, and it's set in Hawaii, I think. And I was like, where did this franchise go wrong? I enjoy 2 through 3 or 2 through 4. I'd say I like 2 and 4 about equally, and 3 is my least favorite of the first 4. It's not bad. It's not Hawaii. It's called Tremors Shrieker Island, and it looks like one of the lesser movies that you would see as a sci-fi original. Like it doesn't look great, but
so
yeah.
You're saying with the first 4 Tremors movie, it follows a similar enjoyment curve that you get out of like the Scream movies.
You know what? That might be a really good comparison. Yeah, because I feel like the first Scream movie really solid, and then after that, it's like, oh, okay, we're just here to crank out another Scream movie. Got it. And
they're not the first though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Connor, it will be your turn to choose something for us to discuss. What do you have in mind?
Well, I'm finally just going to do it. We're going to talk about Killing Me Softly, the erotic thriller starring Heather Graham and Joseph Fiennes.
This is what I thought you were going to choose when you did Austin Powers.
Not since you picked back-to-back Piper Laurie's have we picked someone back-to-back.
Yeah.
And I think it maybe just it speaks to our different tastes with what we're doing here. But yeah, I'm doing back-to-back Heather Graham's. This movie has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's apparently horrible. So, I've been teasing it for long enough, so I'm just gonna do it.
The last time we did a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes was Gotti, and I had the time of my life with that one. So who knows? We may enjoy it.
Maybe.
I don't want to get my hopes up, but maybe we will.
My favorite part, I have seen one scene from this movie.
Okay.
It starts with Heather Graham turning to the camera and saying, "Let me tell you something. New York is the greatest blinking city in the world."
She says, you either, when you're in a life of crime, you either, what was it he said that I was like,
You,
that,
you get out in one of two ways. You go to jail or you get shot. I did both.
and I said, no, you died of cancer. Sorry, John Gotti, rest in peace. Yeah, I am looking forward to this. It's on Tubi, I think. I think it's on Tubi. Yeah. So it's something that I feel like if anyone is out there listening, they can no, Pluto. Sorry, Pluto TV. So it's apparently free on Pluto. So if you're out there and you want to do your homework before we talk about this, you can do that. If you really want to watch a 0%er. I'm very curious about it because I know nothing about it other than Joseph Fiennes and Heather Graham. I know Joseph Fiennes is like, oh hey, he's Voldemort's brother, but like I know him from there was a King Arthur TV series in the early 2000s that I kind of liked him in. So I'm kind of hoping that he will, even if the movie's not great, I'm hoping at least we'll get some good performances out of them.
Yeah, yeah. I all I know is it's got a 0% and it's, I guess, an erotic thriller. I don't know. I got a soft spot for like
Erotic
uh,
thrillers.
90s cornball erotic thrillers. Like, have you ever seen the movie Wild Things with Matt Dillon? And
No, I haven't. No, that's the one. I saw a trailer for it, and it has a legitimately funny line where someone is doing the presentation, and they say, "Can anyone here tell me what a sex crime is?" And he says, "Not getting any." And I'm like, okay, that's pretty funny. I don't know
See,
anything else about the movie.
that movie is like insane. It's like I find those kinds of movies really nutty because it's like it's so obvious what they are, but it's like when like a kid has like chocolate smeared on their mouth and you're like, "Did you have chocolate?" And they go, "No." Like that's what those like 90s erotic thrillers are, like Cruel Intentions or Wild
Bas-
Things or
is
what
is
what
base
have you.
is Basic Instinct? Does that count?
I guess that's kind of the thing that kick-started all of those. I don't know because I've never seen Basic Instinct, but that it's also a Paul Verhoeven movie, and I feel like what I just described is every Paul Verhoeven movie where it's like complete irony without breaking character. So I don't know. I'll have to watch Basic Instinct and get back to you.
Okay,
Uh, yeah. So I think because I think that might be Patient Zero.
okay, okay.
So I don't know. So I want to say Killing Me Softly is 2002.
I think so. Yeah.
And so maybe that's when we stopped being goofy about like Wild Things and started taking ourselves too seriously with this. So hopefully it's nutty fun, but it might just suck. So
Well, that is what we will talk about next time. And Connor, did you have any final thoughts?
Nope.
All
I
right.
have no pocket. I have no gold member quote in my pocket.
I am the Comics Kid 2099, and I like gold.
And I'm Connor.
All
Bye.
right. We'll see you in the future. Bye.
I am the Comics Kid 2099, and I like gold! So.